Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you a review of the new Huda Beauty Rose Gold Remastered palette. I'm also going to be sharing how I got today's look using the palette and swatches. So if you guys want to see all my thoughts on the new Huda Beauty Rose Gold Remastered palette, then just keep on watching. Alright, so the Huda Beauty Rose Gold Remastered palette just released. It's available on the Sephora website and it's also $65. This is basically the updated version of the original rose gold textured palette that came out in 2016. They changed up the formula and they also changed up the packaging. The outside of the packaging is definitely upgraded. This is what it looks like. You get it in this little cardboard box. And then this is what it looks like. It does have a full-size mirror, just like the Huda Beauty Desert Dust palette. And then inside you have 18 shades. You have 8 matte shades. You have 8 melted metal shades, a wet to dry black shade, and then this shade Moon Dust is supposed to be like a pressed pearl shade. So basically you get 9 mattes and 9 shimmers / metallic shades. And you do have a couple different shades from the original rose gold palette. This shade that I'm wearing on my lid today, Pink Diamond, was not in the original palette. And then a couple of these shades in the second row are new to the palette. Some of the matte shades are a little bit different, but very, very similar. Still like warm, reddish, brown colors. Basically, very, very similar color scheme. And then all of the shades down here are the same. And then these shimmers and Blessed and Moon Dust are in the original palette too. So you're getting a lot of overlap. Really, the difference is just a couple mattes and the formula. So the original formula, I actually never bought the original palette because I was just debating whether or not I would like the formula. And a lot of people were really divided with the original formula. Some people loved it, some people hated it. And I just remember swatching it in Sephora every time I would go into Sephora and debating whether or not I wanted it because the palette looked gorgeous. But the textured shadows, which were all the first row that they replaced in this palette with a different formula, all of those were just like pressed pigments. So you had to use them with your finger. You had to just like pack them on and it wasn't like a normal shimmer shadow. So a lot of people were having issues with the original textured formula and she changed those to melted metals. And then also she improved the formula of the matte shades. Apparently I don't have the original one to swatch, but I do remember the texture of the textured shadows in the old palette. And I can say just from swatching them, they are very, very different. They feel very, very different. And I've been wearing this palette for several days and there are different textures within the shimmer shadows and the mattes are pretty consistent in here. But I'm just gonna go ahead and swatch all 18 shades. I do wanna go through them pretty quickly, but I still wanna let you guys know like the different formulas. So let's go ahead and zoom in to swatch all of the shadows. All right, so starting off with the first row of all shimmer shades. The first shade is Dubai. Next we have the shade Fling. Next we have the shade Trust Fund. Then we have the shade Rose Gold. Then we have the shade that's on my lid today, which is Pink Diamond. And then the last shade in the first row is 24 Karat. So those are all the first row of shadows. They all look just like they do in the pan. They're super, super pigmented. They are gorgeous. Definitely a huge improvement to me. I love the formula of all 6 shades in the first row for sure. They're so pretty. So moving into the second row, we're gonna start off with this matte shade Risque. So this is Risque. Then we have a pink tone Doll Face. Then we have Demure. Then we have Blessed. Then we have the pressed pigment Moon Dust. And then the last shade in the second row is called Bubbly. So these are the second shades. I just did them super, super casually and quick so you guys can see just like without really trying how pigmented they look. So the shade Moon Dust is a bit chunkier. That is the pressed pearl shade. So you're gonna get a lot more fallout with that shade compared to like a shade like this, which is Blessed. And then Bubbly is a little bit of a drier shadow compared to Blessed and all the shimmer shades from the top row. So moving on to the last row, starting off with the matte black shade. That shade is called Black Truffle. And then we have the shade Suede. Next we have the shade Cocoa and Man Eater. Then we have Henna. And then the last shade in the palette is called Sandalwood. So those are all of the matte shades in the last row. Really, really consistent, really, really pigmented. They all apply really, really nicely on the eyes. I don't have any issues with any of the matte shades. Really, it was just the 2 shimmer shades in the second row that just take a little bit extra effort, but everything else is like super, super consistent. This is what they look like, just like they look in the pan is how pigmented they swatch and how pigmented they end up on the eye. But those are all 18 shades. Let's go ahead into the tutorial so you guys can see how I got this eye look using the palette. So getting into the palette, I'm gonna start off with the shade Sandalwood, which is just like a matte brown transition shade. I'm gonna start off with just like the regular warmer tone browns, and then I'm moving into some of the burgundy and purpley tones, but I just want a really warm crease. I'm just using a Sigma E40 to blend this out and kind of build it up. And that's one of the lighter matte tones in the palette. This one, Suede and Demure are all like the lighter matte, and they're all like very different undertones. So I just wanted to go with like a regular matte brown, but we'll add some purple in there too. This is definitely a color that is really easy to build up to a more like vibrant pigmented look, or you could just use a tiny bit to start off any eyeshadow look with this palette. Then I'm just gonna add in a little bit of this darker reddish brown henna. I'm just gonna apply it to my outer corner. I just wanna add a little bit of depth with this color, but then I'm gonna use some of the other matte shades to really add like a more vibrant look. All right, so for my lid, I'm going in with the shade Pink Diamond, which is kind of like a purpley pink shade, which I really, really like. I'm gonna apply that. Let me apply it with my finger, and then I'm actually gonna go over it with a wet brush. But just so you guys can see, like this is just like a quick swatch. And if you wet them, they definitely look like a liquid metal. They look like a foiled cream shadow. I just love the combination of purple tones and a really, really warm crease. That's like my favorite, especially like for summer. I'm just going in with a wet Morphe M124 to finish that out on my lid. And I just love this color. It's like one of my favorites in the palette. It reminds me of a lot of the shades in the Desert Dust palette, but I just like the texture of this shadow so much more. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more purple to this look, just going in with the shade Risque, which is more of like a purpley burgundy shade. Just wanna add that to my outer corner a little bit, just to add, yes, a little bit more color. All right, so we're almost done with the eyes. I just wanna add a tiny bit of the shade Fling. This is one of the shadows that is like a little bit stiffer in the pan. I'm just gonna use it on this dry brush. This is a Smashbox contour shadow brush, just like a denser shadow brush. I just wanna apply a little bit just to add a tiny bit of a sheen. I don't necessarily want to change up the color. I just wanna add a little bit of a sheen to the outer corner. That way the matte purple doesn't look very harsh. Then I'm just taking a wet pencil brush from Sigma, and I'm just gonna go in with the shade Moon Dust. This is the Press Pearl shade, so it's a little bit more of a chunky texture. I just wanna add a little bit of this lighter shade to my inner corner. Not so much my inner corner, but like my tear duct, and just kind of build it onto my lid. So I just added a little bit of a cream shadow to my waterline. This is the shade Satini from Girlactic. It's just like a really metallic cream eyeshadow, and I'm gonna go ahead with some matte shadows for my lower lash line because I don't want it to look like super pink on my bottom lashes. So I'm just gonna start off with Sandalwood, the same matte brown. I'm probably just gonna use the same browns that I used for my crease. And I'm also gonna add a little bit of Risque to the outer corner of my lower lashes to make everything a little bit more purple. I really like all of these colors together. Okay, so that is all of the eyeshadow. It's really, really quick and easy. The eyeshadows are super easy to blend out, especially the shades that I used. The one that I used for my inner corner, the shade Moon Dust, this shade is the Pressed Pearl. It takes a little bit of work. It's not something, I actually did use this all over my lid in my Instagram tutorial. I'll link it in my description box, but it takes a bit of work to actually build it up with just like a wet brush compared to some of the other shades because that shade's a little bit grittier. But the shade that I used on my eyes today and the rest of the shimmer shadows are a lot more buttery and smooth, and the mattes are really, really easy. So I'm just gonna apply some mascara and lashes, and then we'll finish up with this look. All right, so this is the completed look with the palette, and I've been doing a lot of different looks over the past several days just to test out the different formulas and see how I feel about the palette. And it's just been really, really consistent and really easy to use. Like every time I do my eye makeup, it takes like 5 minutes and I have like a complete finished full glam look without too much effort at all. I have no issue with blending. All the mattes blend together really nicely. I find that it's a lot better formula than the Desert Dust palette, and let me show you guys just like the shade comparisons. And with the Desert Dust palette, you have a lot of different textures, and that's why I don't really use it too much, because some of my favorite shades like Retrograde, Twilight, they take some extra work with like a glitter glue or some kind of eyeshadow base to really make them stand out, and I'd rather just go in with a wet brush, a blending brush, and call it a day. So that's why I definitely love the formula of the new Rose Gold Remastered a lot more. Not only that, but I find the mattes in the Desert Dust palette are a little bit more dry compared to the ones in the Rose Gold Remastered. So I was a little hesitant just buying this palette because I never reached for the Desert Dust, and that was such a pricey palette. I think it's the exact same price, but I definitely prefer the Rose Gold Remastered for sure. I really love the shades in here. I know a lot of people have been comparing it to Soft Glam, so I just want to show you guys a shaded comparison. And I do think you get a lot of similarities. Like if you have one, you probably don't need the other. Like I think they're very, very similar. Like you can do very similar looks with both, honestly. Like I'm not seeing too much of a difference. You could probably get very identical eye looks with both palettes for sure. Basically, the Rose Gold palette has a lot more rose gold shades, pink shades, and more burgundy shades, and then the Soft Glam palette has like some more brown tones, but generally it's basically like the Soft Glam palette but like expanded with more rose gold. But that's kind of why I wanted it, because I love this palette and I love rose gold, so I wanted an expanded version of that. But if you have this palette already, you might just see a lot of overlap, so definitely keep that in mind. But I think it's a very similar formula. The mattes are not as pigmented as the Soft Glam, but just let me show you guys a comparison of two of my favorite shades. So this is Bronze from Soft Glam, and then this is 24 Karat underneath from Huda Beauty. So those look super, super similar. You're gonna get very, very identical looks with both. So those are all the comparisons in case you guys are curious. And also if you have the original Huda Beauty Mini Obsessions palettes, I know they just released some new ones and those have had some mixed reviews, but especially this one, the Smoky Obsessions, like the shimmers in here are very similar to the Rose Gold Remastered. Like this silver shade is one of my favorite shades of all time. It's super, super pigmented. So if you're familiar with the shimmers in here, it's very similar to those really metallic kind of cream shadows that are in this palette. Like they feel like liquid when they go on the eye. They look like a liquid shadow. They apply so beautifully. They're really easy to blend out. So overall, I'm really impressed with the Rose Gold Remastered palette. I really love the formula in here. I don't feel like anything is missing for me in this palette. It has like all the mattes I need and shimmer shades. If you do have more of a fair complexion, some of the transition shades are going to be a bit darker, so there's not like too much of a lighter transition shade. The lightest one is still kind of like a medium brown tone, so definitely keep that in mind too if you don't like more vibrant, darker, warm matte shades. But overall, I'm really happy with the formula. I'm actually really impressed. I was a little hesitant about it because I never really reached for my Desert Dust, and these are pricey palettes. So I wanted to give you guys a rundown of all the comparisons and everything and the formula. So if you do spend the $65 on it, I think that it's worth it. I am impressed with it. I never really spend that much on palettes, but I think it's a good value for how much product you're getting, how many shades you're getting, and the formula. I'm really impressed with it, and I think it's a lot more beginner friendly compared to the other Huda Beauty palettes because you don't have all those different textures. Those are fun, but sometimes I just don't want to think about doing all the extra steps. I just want to throw on some eyeshadow and call it a day and not really deal with glitter glue and all that. So I'm really happy with the formula. I'm really happy with the palette. I definitely recommend it. It is pricier, but I think it's worth it. You get a lot of product for how much the palette is. All right, so that is everything for this review of the Rose Gold Remastered palette. Let me know if you guys are going to be buying it in the comments down below. Let me know if you got the original palette in the comments below too. And if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.